meron po tayong guests. Siya po ay tunay na eksperto. Hindi kunwa-kunwari lang. 5-5 po ngayon ang mga nagpapanggap na eksperto. Kaya po, pakinggan po natin sa bibig mismo ng isang eksperto. Bakit po siya eksperto? Kasi siya po ang espesyalista ng adult infectious diseases sa San Lazaro. At dun sa mga nakakaalam, siyempre po ang San Lazaro, yan po yung primary hospital natin pagdating sa infectious disease. So walang kaduda-duda po ang ating panauhin na si Dr. Ron Solante ay isang infectious disease specialist. At pangalawa po, kung po pwede po, explain nyo rin kung ano-ano yung pagkakaiba ng mga iba't ibang mga bakuna. At sabihin na nating totoo, ano ibig sabihin ng 50% efficacy rate po, no, nang maintindihan po ng mabuti ng ating mga kababayan. Bagamat ang SinoVac po ay 60% daw po ang effectivity rate. No? Dr. Solante, a true expert on infectious diseases, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Sir Harry Roque. Tandaan natin na ang develop ng bakuna, dadaan yan sa proseso, yung preclinical studies at yung phase 1, 2, and 3 clinical studies. No? So yung pinakamabigat dito yung sa preclinical studies na ang inaaral nila yung bakuna nang binibigay pa lang sa mga animals. No? Ang pinaka-common na animals lang, yung non-human primate, no? Or mice. Pag pumapasa yan sa preclinical study, ang tinitingnan doon kung may bisa ba yung bakuna na mag-produce ng antibody sa mga animals. Tapos tinitesting yung mga doses. And at the same time, tinitingnan din kung walang mga major side effect doon sa animals. Pag pumapasa yan, mayroong mga tinatawag na threshold for immunogenicity and safety. So ibig sabihin, tinitingnan kung anong level ng antibody at saka yung safety, mga side effect ng mga bakuna. No? Pag pumapasa yan sa preclinical study, then pupunta na yan doon sa phase 1 clinical study, human trial. So in the human trial, only a few of the humans will be given the vaccine that was tested to the animals. Okay? So ang pinaka-importante dito sa human phase 1 is yung tinatawag natin na safety. So titingnan kung pag ibakuna sa tao, ano yung mga reactions. And then tinitingnan din kung how the immune system of the human will react to that particular vaccine and will produce antibody. Now, if that will be successful, that will proceed now to what we call the phase 2. The phase 2 is the same as the phase 1, but you'll be testing the vaccine to more people, like 100 or 600, but not more than 1,000. Then if that will be successful also, then you will be able to establish that the vaccine is safe. You will be able to establish that the vaccine is immunogenic, able to produce an antibody. That's where the phase 3 trial will come in, because the phase 3 trial will now examine and test if that particular individual na babakunahan hindi makakuha ng COVID infection, because that will only now entail like 30, 40, or even 50,000 participants. Yung pangalawang tanong, platforms, no? Ibig sabihin, anong klaseng bakuna that will stimulate our body to produce this antibody against the SARS-CoV virus, no? So maraming platforms. So far, kung familiar kayo sa Pfizer at saka Moderna, ito yung tinatawag na mRNA. This is the messenger RNA. In our body, the messenger RNA is relevant in terms of cell replication, sa pagdami ng cell. And this is an example of a platform of a vaccine that was not tested before because it is unstable, no? But when they did this, so this is not a new platform. It's an old platform. Kaya lang walang gumagawa nito because they said na yung mRNA may not be that stable. But we were surprised when they did this, Moderna and the Pfizer, was able to really elicit a very good antibody response, no? And I think you know now the result of these two vaccines. How effective are these? Then we also have the virus vector-borne platform. Gagamit sila ng virus na hindi harmful, tapos i-insert nila yung spike protein doon ng virus ng SARS-CoV, tapos i-inject sa tao to elicit an antibody. Example of this vaccine is the AztraZeneca. No? So they use a chimpanzee adenovirus. So meaning that will simulate our antibody response. So maganda naman ang kinalalabasan. And then we have this inactivated virus. Example of that is the SinoVac. Inactivated virus, inactivate yung SARS-CoV to the point na hindi na siya harmful but will elicit an immune response. Example of an inactivated virus vaccine is influenza or the flu vaccine. No? So that means magkapareho ang SinoVac at saka influenza ng platform. It's an old platform, very proven and very safe. No? So yun yung mga advantage ng mga old platform kasi talagang subok na sila. It's just a matter that they just modify it to produce an antibody against the SARS-CoV. So those are the three common platforms. Pero marami pa mga platforms na ginagawa ngayon and they are still in the phase 1 and phase 2 study.
Maraming salamat, no? Pero itong threshold na acceptability na 50% in terms of efficacy, sino ba ho ang nag-determine yan?
Okay, the WHO determines the threshold of 50%. This is based on a number of percentage ng babakunahan to control a particular pandemic. So may mga mathematical modeling silang ginagawa nito na pag 50% ang efficacy ng bakuna mo, tapos babakunahan mo yung 60 to 70% of the population, that would be enough to control the pandemic or the ongoing pandemic in a particular country. So hindi natin kailangan yung 60-70, but bonus na yun pag meron kang 60 to 70% because that will really add up to what we call more control of the pandemic. So 50 lang ang kailangan natin para lang ma-control natin ang pandemic. And I think most of the vaccine, that is also their target na makalampas na ng 50, that would be enough na it can be approved by their regulatory process.
Ang question ko naman po tungkol dito sa SinoVac, no? Bakit po sa clinical trials, kasi wala pong clinical trials sa China dahil wala na sila masyadong kaso ng COVID doon, no? Iba-iba yung efficacy rate na lumabas. Sa Turkey, 91.25. Sa Indonesia, 91.25. At sa Brazil ay 50.4. Bagamat itong tatlong bansang po ito ay ginagamit na ang SinoVac, bakit iba-iba yung efficacy rate?
Okay, that's a good question. No? Yung efficacy rate is not always consistent with any population. No? Depende yan. Number one, ang efficacy rate will always be one, how the vaccine will elicit an antibody response. Number two, how the reproduction number of a particular country. And then number three is the host immune response, how the host can elicit and produce this antibody. If you look at influenza vaccine, the efficacy rate of influenza vaccine varies from 30% to 70%. In the US, ang nakita nilang efficacy rate ng influenza vaccine is only like 35%. In other countries, it's like 50%. And I think the highest efficacy rate was in 60%. Pangalawa, depende din yan sa mga target population na binabakunahan mo. If you are vaccinating younger individual, like 50 years old and below, you would expect a higher immune response and more protection, and you will see that the vaccine will be very effective. But if you will also inject the vaccine to 65 years and above, then an efficacy rate of 50-60% would be already acceptable.
Isa na lang po talaga. Yung naiulat po na 29 mga senior citizen ang namatay sa Norway, kung hindi po ako nagkakamali. No? 29 po no, ang namatay na. Ano ba ho ibig sabihin nito? Pero ang efficacy rate po ng Pfizer, kung hindi ako nagkakamali, pinakamataas at 95. No? Ano po ibig sabihin yan?
Kaya dito natin makikita na when you are giving the vaccine, i-monitor pa rin natin sila 1 year after giving the vaccine. Kasi hindi natin makikita kung ano yung pinaka-concerning na side effect. But if I'm going to give my thoughts on this 29 sa Norway, kailangan nilang investigahan yan because if you look at the other countries like US, UK, or Canada, who is also using Pfizer vaccine, wala namang ganun kadaming namamatay and it's only unique in Norway. So dapat kailangan pa rin susuriin yun. Bakit in this country, there are a lot of those who were given the vaccine, that single vaccine, and died, and why in other countries did not, no? And if you look at the side effect, the adverse event of a vaccine, okay, rarely ang vaccine will elicit a side effect if it is given more than 2 months. Makikita mo talaga ang adverse event na severe within 2 months of the vaccine. That's the reason why that when this will be rolled out, at least naka 60 days na siya na nakikita natin na walang major adverse event na nakita. So itong sa Norway SEC, no, mukhang titingnan lang nila to kung yung namamatay is related ba directly sa vaccine or mayroong other circumstances that circumstances na during the vaccination baka meron na siyang mga comorbidities na very unstable. That's why the patient died.
Thank you. No? Now, ang ating mga kasama sa Malacanang Press Corps, meron pong pagpupulong si Dr. Solante. So lahat ng tanong nyo kay Dr. Solante, pakitanong na po ngayon. Kay Yusek Roque, meron bang mga tanong para kay Dr. Solante, ang tunay na expert pagdating po sa adult infectious diseases?
Opo, Secretary, may tanong po si Evelyn Quiroz ng Filipino Mirror, pero yung ilang bahagi po ay nasagot na ni Dr. Solante. Basahin ko na lang po, Dr. Solante, no? Baka may maidagdag po kayo. In a late stage trial in Brazil, SinoVac's anti-coronavirus vaccine showed a general efficacy of less than 60%. Philippine officials earlier said this was acceptable. By what standards did those officials base their statement?
Doc, pakisagot po muli dahil kayo
so
eksperto.
I think nasagot ko na yan kanina, no? Tinanong na rin yan ni Secretary Roque, no, na ang threshold natin is 50%. As long as, kasi alam mo, itong 50%, nakikita na rin nila yan nung ginawa nila yung phase 2 trial, phase 1 and phase 2 trial, kasi na-review din namin yan, SinoVac, yung phase 1, phase 2. Kaya pumasa siya to be given the phase 3 kasi medyo maganda rin ang immunogenicity data niya, no? So siguro, pag 50% or more, mukhang acceptable. Ang isang tinitingnan ko rin dyan, hihimayin din natin, maliban doon sa prevention of infection, ilan ba din ang porsyento na na-prevent yung severe disease? No? Kasi hindi lang naman prevention of infection ang tinitingnan natin. In fact, ang isa sa pinaka-importante na parameter sa isang bakuna, pag nabakunahan ka, ma-prevent mo ba yung severe disease over that of the mild? Kasi ang mild naman, you don't need a higher risk of mortality, but the severe disease is where you can really say that if this vaccine can prevent severe disease, then I would choose that over that, even if it's 50% efficacy rate niya.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Solante.
Melo Acuña for Dr. Solante, please.
Yes, thank you, Secretary, for Dr. Solante. Yun po bang mga bakuna na sinusuri ngayon dito sa Pilipinas, ito po ba ay makatutugon doon sa UK variant? Dahilan sa yun ang ilang agam-agam ng ating mga kababayan. Dr. Solante, please.
Yes. So far doon sa mga examination nila, no, ng analysis nila doon sa mutation ng spike protein, and then hinahambing nila doon, kinumpare nila doon yung mechanism of action ng the way these vaccines stimulate antibody, and the antibody will still be effective against targeting that spike protein. It seemed na mukhang hindi pa apektado ang bakuna. So it doesn't make the vaccine less effective. In fact, yung unang nagsuri nito, yung sa Pfizer na tinetest nila yung bakuna sa UK variant, and they found out that it was not affected by the variation of that or the mutation of that virus. And it still produced the number of antibodies or the amount of antibodies expected in a vaccine. So on that note, it's still possible that it can, but less likely. But still, we have to monitor also while these individuals are being vaccinated.
Yung po kayang lahi ng isang tao ay factor din para makatugon ang pangangatawan doon sa dinudulot ng bakuna?
Yes po, sir. No? So in fact, sa mga trials ngayon, lahat ng trials, yung tatlo, tinitingnan nila yung ethnicity at race. Kung meron bang unique na race or ethnicity na pwedeng mataas ang efficacy or mababa ang efficacy. And with all of this, tinitingnan din namin to, and that's one of the criteria na pag hindi naman apektado ang efficacy with any of this race and ethnicity, so maganda ang bakuna, whether you Caucasian or Asian or any other race, maganda ang bakuna na matingnan. And so far, these vaccines are not affected by race or ethnicity in terms of efficacy.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
Okay. Joseph Morong, question for Dr. Solante.
Hi, sir. Good morning. Dr. Jean, good morning po. Hi, good afternoon, sir.
Hi, Joseph.
Sir, yeah, so with regard to the president, do you think that he has comorbidities that would put him at more risk than the regular population for vaccination?
I don't see any contraindication in terms of the presence of these comorbidities in terms of when you talk about giving or not giving the COVID vaccine. Okay? In fact, the presence of comorbidities will make us more prioritize this individual with comorbidities because they are also the person that are higher risk of a more severe form of COVID.
Yes, sir. Sir, I understand that you're part also of the vaccine expert panel of the government, no?
Yes.
Sir, you've seen, obviously, the portfolio of vaccine manufacturers that the government is talking to, and you've seen their data. From the portfolio, sir, what vaccine would you recommend for the president?
Okay. For now, ang nakikita naman kasi namin, ang tinitingnan talaga namin is una is the safety of the vaccine. And I think so far, among the three, although ang Pfizer ang nabigyan ng EUA, but for most of this vaccine, they cannot really proceed to phase 3 unless they are not safe. No? So I think most of the vaccines now are really safe. Himay-himayin na lang natin siguro to the point na ang gusto talaga nating makikita ngayon na dapat meron na silang phase 3 data. Kasi importante yan na pag meron kang phase 3, at least na-test mo na yan sa mga or nabigay mo na yan doon sa karamihan. So you can see the trend in terms of how effective and how safe the vaccine. So sa ngayon, sa mga bakuna nakikita natin ngayon, wala tayong nakikita na specific for 65 years old and above or specific for 18 to 50 years old and above. Most of these vaccines are safe to be given and effective regardless of age and regardless of the presence of comorbidities.
You mentioned 3 vaccines, sir. What are those?
The Pfizer, those with the published phase 3 trial, no? The Pfizer, the Moderna, and Astra.
Hindi po sa mga SinoVac.
We haven't reviewed yet the SinoVac.
So if you have to choose as of now, tatlo lang so yung pwede kay Presidente, Pfizer, Moderna, and Astra.
That is based on how we did the evaluation now. And at saka sinasabi naman palagi natin na when we do the evaluation and then it is always based on this data na pinapadala nila, no? And we really scrutinize this data para lang at least masigurado natin na wala tayong mamimiss doon sa mga data, especially these 3 vaccines.
Kapag sa korte po, meron tayong popruebahan tungkol sa, for instance, cause of death, kinakailangan ng expert witness. Totoo po yan, kinakailangan doktor. Pero hindi lang po ordinaryong doktor. Ang unang i-establish niyo po bilang isang abogado, kinakailangan i-qualify mo yung testigo mo as an expert witness. At kung cause of death, kinakailangan ipakita mo hindi lang siya doktor, kundi meron din siyang specialized training para maging pathologist kasi sila yung nag-aaral ng cause of death. Hindi lang po yan, no? Ilang taon na silang nagpa-practice bilang pathologist, ilang beses na silang tumistigo sa hukuman para ma-qualify as an expert witness. So sa ating pagdiskurso po pagdating sa bakuna, ganyan din po dapat natin ginagawa. Tignan, hindi lang dapat doktor. Meron ba silang specialized training as vaccinologist or as infectious specialist sa specialty, no? At bukod dyan is, gaano katagal sila nagpa-practice, nagtuturo ba sila, meron na silang sinulat ng mga artikulo, bago po natin sila paniwalaan bilang experts. Sinasabi ko po ito ngayon dahil ngayon po, 5-5 sa mga experts pagdating po sa bakuna. Sa ngalan po ng inyong presidente, ito pong inyong spokeshari Roque nagsasabi, naku po, pag-ingatan natin kung sino pakikinggan natin. Ha? Ulitin ko po, ang proseso para maging expert, kinakailangan ipakita kung mayroon ka bang specialized sa pinag-aralan para maging expert. Kung mayroon ka bang karanasan sa specialized field na yon. Ilang beses ka nang nagbigay ng testimonya mo. Marami ka bang nasulat na artikulo tungkol sa field of specialty mo, no? Huwag po tayo maniwala dun sa mga 5-5 mga eksperto. Dahil marami po dyan nagpapapansin lang. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat.